All right, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us on Lee and Me. Today we are talking about inspiring transformation.
Yes.
Right? And say hello to my co-host, Lee Grabarczyk, out of Soulful Mandelas out of Long Valley, New Jersey. And I am Camille Miller, the founder of the Natural Life Business Partnership. And you are joining us on the Lee and Me Show. Hi,
Yep.
Lee.
Good morning, Camille.
It
Happy
has been.
Tuesday to you.
Yeah, happy Tuesday to you.
So one of the things that part of this came up out of Kobe Bryant's recent passing, and and also because of the new year, or Chinese New Year. And there's this whole thing about transformation for myself, inspiring transformation for other people. Okay, and a lot of this is kind of like an idea that a lot of people hold out and we'll talk about. But really, for me, it really comes down to the action in that. Mm-hmm. And, what is the phrase from Gandhi? Be the change you want to see. So when it is that I want to have is something going on, right? And I'm looking to inspire, I'm looking to create, I'm looking to develop. What it requires to make it authentic and to have a certain kind of resonance and power and strength is to actually speak authentically or experientially from that topic.
Okay.
So when I'm going and I'm saying to somebody, this community needs to have this, or this community needs to be inspired to be another way, or maybe it needs to be more loving, or it needs to be more active, or it needs to be more universal. Right? Well, all of those things have to come. I have to, from that perspective, bring that to that conversation in a way that then facilitates that outcome. Because otherwise what I'm doing is I'm sitting there on the sidelines trying to passively control what's happening, saying, well, I carried my word, I spoke something, but I didn't do anything.
Right.
Because the littlest of actions, even the littlest of intentions is so transformational. The woman who wrote The Course of Miracles, highly recommend that for our viewers. In the very beginning of the book, there's about just maybe a page or just a couple paragraphs on how that book came into being. But it came into being from an intention that was then followed by an action. And that little teeny intention and action followed step by step, created this amazing document, and a lot of people can look into that. So transformational stuff really comes from my willingness to share it, and then in the part of what it is that I've been able to, work through, whatever the issue is, whatever the challenge is, I then step up and communicate that. And that is how I inspire and transform. Because if I am sitting around and, looking at some kind of problem, and again, I'm distancing myself from it in such a way as to say, well, really, if only they did something, if only they would get that the value of this thing is this, that, or the other, then everything would be fine. Well, if I am still, even if it's a teeny piece of me, still holding on to part of that idea, then I really am not making any sense. And energetically, the information can't go forward. But when I risk working through whatever my issue happens to be, when I'm able to take chances and I'm able to work through my fear and whatever kinds of problems I may be experiencing, that has power. Because that stretch of consciousness, that little teeny move from, I'm really uncomfortable talking in front of a group of people, but I feel that what I have to say is really important. And then all of a sudden I get up there and I'm stuttering and I'm stammering and I'm afraid, and I start speaking in words that maybe they kind of come out, maybe not the way that I think that they should, but I have an emotional content and an involvement and engagement that is authentic and real, that connects me to the people in a meaningful way that inspires them. So I can be a Greta Thunberg who is very well spoken, but all I have to do is just take the action of what it is that I really believe in and then risk it and see where it goes. Because if I have an attachment to the outcome, then what I'm doing is I'm controlling it and I'm not working through my fear. I am no longer at that point actually doing the work of transformative behavior that I am so saying I aspire to and so much demanding of other people. So that part of it, because it really comes down to what is the action?
Right.
And I can talk about, like something where, well, I've read a certain book on something, or I've studied something somewhere, but if I haven't actually physically done the work, then I really can't really communicate that in a way that people are going to trust, because they're going to smell that what it is that I'm doing is actually a posturing and an act. I'm not bringing to it the actual energy of what it is that it was able to work through that gives it a great deal of strength.
Yeah. Well, I think people also, they think they're doing the work.
Yes.
But not actually doing the work is the number one thing I see. And I see it a lot of times with even law of attraction. Like, why am I manifesting? I'm doing everything I'm supposed to. And I'm like,
yes.
Are you? Like, are you just thinking about it? And I was like, there's a big difference between manifesting and wishing something to come true, right?
Yes.
And the people always say, well, it just doesn't work for me. And that's the diving deeper. That's the, like, how are you blocking this? Because
yes.
people are blocking things without them realizing they're blocking things.
The only person who really blocks us is us.
Exactly.
The only person who is in our way is us.
Exactly. So
and once people get that, that's when things become transformative. Absolutely. Once people recognize that they're the ones in their own way, that's when we get into these incredible paradigm shifts. Because otherwise, we're just chasing our tail and looking at somebody else to do the action, and nothing happens. I did last, I think it was maybe August or September, I was doing like readings, minor readings with some people. And then I was asked to do gallery reading for a home. And these gallery readings, what that means for people who don't know is that people gather, and then as an intuitive, I go through and I communicate messages, a little bit of mediumship to a bunch of people who I haven't met before, and then kind of and talk about nerve-wracking, and then talk about whatever it is that's going on. Now, this felt to me to be important, but I had to work through my fear. And when I did it, everybody was acting like, oh my goodness, you must have been doing this for years and years and years. No, that was the first time that I did it. But life honored me. So this is so important. So when I do the action, and this is now when I'm willing to risk falling on my face and really making a fool out of myself and really screwing up, I also risk succeeding. I also risk being able to do something that's miraculous. Because at that moment, I create a space of consciousness where the universe can step up and say, yes, we think that this is something that works. Here you go. Here's what you need. And I am given it in the moment that I need it. Because when I allow, because allowing is so critical to the part of transformation. Allowing is the space that allows that information outside of what it is that I've currently been caught up in, so I actually can change. And that is just part of the nature of life. One of the things that people really, I would ask people to reflect on is, are you the same person you were 10 years ago? Did you ever expect you would be the person you are today? And if so, what could be possible in the next 10 years? Mm-hmm. And it also shows all those things for those people listening 10, 15 years ago, all those things that you had control over. Do you still think you have control over them? Did life show you that you don't? So why waste your time on that? And why not bring that energy back into your own choice and your own vision? And then take the action on that vision. That vision, even when it comes to awareness, awareness is the booby prize without action. It doesn't mean a thing in the sense of it doesn't have the kind of fruition, it doesn't bear fruit of what it offers if it just sits there like a seed that hasn't been taken care of and nurtured. The seed is there, it's beautiful, sitting on a rock, drying in the sun.
Right.
Or has it been planted, nurtured, taken care of, etc.? And part of the transformation thing too is, why would I want to waste my time doing something for somebody or connected to somebody who doesn't want to do it? Why would I want to get into something where I am like asking a bunch of people to do it and they don't? Find the audience that works and let go of whatever the attachment is so that the transformational process can begin. And in that process, then I represent change, transition, and adaptation in a way that, again, is also authentic. And other people go, hey, you know, I'm thinking about this, but I think I'm going to do it. And then they do it, and then all of a sudden the universe goes, yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Even within your own business.
Yeah. So, you know, when I started the Natural Life Business Partnership, I attracted a lot of people that were in business, but they weren't always really working hard in their business, or they wanted to stay small, which was a mistake I made because I wanted to see everyone big.
Yes.
So over the years, and now going into our 5th year, I just made a huge transformation in the community and the people I work with, because I was tired of trying to push people up a hill to be successful when they couldn't really invest in themselves, and not only invest financially, like invest the time.
They didn't want to. They didn't want to.
Like, totally didn't want to. They weren't mentally there, and some people just really aren't. They like staying where they are, and that's perfectly.
That's right.
So over
I want to just interrupt that quickly, because when we are in, no matter who we are or what we're doing, this is why the movie Forrest Gump was such a big success, because we have it in our heads that certain people need to have, like, you need to have this and this and this and this and this in your background. You have to have a certain IQ. You have to come through. None of that matters.
Nope.
The only thing that matters is the belief, aspiration. And for some people, yes, for some people, they really don't do it, but that's a choice. That's a choice to not want to aspire. That's a choice to not want to believe in oneself. That's a choice to kind of, because even if I have an abusive childhood and things are really bad and I don't have any kind of hope, I can say, hey, I had an abusive childhood and I don't have any hope. I want to do something about it. Oh, good. Here you go. Here's a group therapy session. Here's a 12-step program. Here is some kind of community service outreach that's for free. Here's some kind of training program for free. Here's something that's through the local hospital that is provided through the state. There are so many things, but we need to take that action to make that happen. So.
Absolutely. So what I was saying, so over the past, it's been like a few weeks. It's really started in my head a while back, but in the past few weeks, I had decided as we came into the new year to just revamp everything. And I was like, I'm going to my 5th year. Fun. I'm not pushing people up that hill anymore unless they want to. I will walk side by side with people up that hill, but I will not push anyone up that hill anymore. So I doubled all of my prices. I tripled the price on my business intensives. Yeah. I went and I actually told my community, you can choose to be a part of it or not. I am only working with high achievers going forward. That's it. And then I also created my own 12-week transformational program where I'll work with people individually to get there. But it's a deep dive into your own self-worth. It's a deep dive into your own feelings of what is consciously or subconsciously blocking you. And I do give you actions, like you have homework. And some of it's just to be curious, just to be allowing of every single thing. I'm going through an exercise these last 2 weeks of allowing anything that crosses my plate in the next 2 weeks, just allow it to happen.
Yes.
It has been an incredible exercise for me, because I was actually telling one of our mutual friends the other day that I got a Facebook message from someone, I don't even know who it was, and that said, do you want to be a part of this like global speakers things? We're doing interviews, and it just seemed like such a scam. And I looked at it, I was like, I'm not even answering. And then I went, wait, I promised myself I would allow everything. So even if it took 20 minutes of my time to say yes and see what they're talking about, I'm going to allow it to happen. It ended up being a global summit of women leaders that I was chosen for, did a full interview for, and is actually going to be released this week.
Fantastic.
It ended up being huge. And I was like, okay. Now, I would have just ignored it. So it's just going through this 2 weeks of just allowing everything. So when people want to talk to me, you're just saying, okay, would say, and even doubling my prices and doing all of that, the amount of people that are coming back, the amount of old members that left that are coming back, just saying, I'm ready now. And I'm like, clearly it's perceived value. You're ready because you think it's something more. I don't know why. Like all of a sudden it changed them. They're ready. But we'll see.
Yes,
Action
because it's a
is a part of
community
it.
idea. So one of the things that's so important is, and I know an organization where there's a guy who was leading something that was very important, and he was paying the rent for the facility, and he was covering a lot of the expenses. When he stopped doing it and other people covered it, that's when it started thriving.
Yeah.
Because he was in the way of their contribution. And he was also treating them as incapable of covering their own expenses.
I gotcha. Yeah. Yeah.
And this is kind of like where things can get really kind of crazy, because when we go to assist people, one of the greatest things that we can do is challenge them.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that we do that is by challenging them, by telling them the truth. Don't lie.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no such thing as cruel honesty. There's cruelty and there's honesty. There is no such thing as cruel honesty, because cruelty is an intention of hurt. Honesty is a liberation from fear.
Gotcha.
And when we are honest with people and we say, by the way, I noticed that you have when you come into the room, there's something that I'd like to talk to you about. Oh, what's that? Well, and then when it resonates, you're like, oh, I never noticed it. Thank you. And that part of the communication is what kind of frees things up. And then they say the same thing back. There's something that you're doing. And I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't notice that. And when we're working from that perspective, like you're describing here, things start moving again. Because people recognize their role within what they're doing. And even in the concept of God, this can come up, because a lot of people are like, well, God just made it happen. Really? You think God's enabling? You think God's codependent? You think that God just comes in there and says, oh, you poor, sad thing, you can't do anything. Bull crap.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the thing that we need to go through, the sadness, the strain, the horror, the pain of it, is exactly what we need to let go.
Yeah.
And it's a gift. And it's impossible for some people to move forward until they recognize that life is teaching them a lesson and telling them information that has value for them. And it's not a punishment. It's not some kind of cruelty. It's a lesson in the greater perspective and wisdom of the universe, which is infinite beyond my own understanding, that does things that to me may not make any sense, but for that person is exactly what they need. How many times you hear people say, I'm so grateful that I had cancer. I'm so grateful that I had HIV. I'm so grateful that I had that near-death experience. That changed my life forever. Now I have a sense of renewed purpose that I never would have had otherwise.
Absolutely.
And that kind of transformative stuff is the stuff that makes for the great inspirational teacher.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why so many people like myself and others who've had difficult times growing up and wondering, like, why did I have to go through this? And why was this so hard for me? And why was this so challenging? Because I had to be able to understand what other people were talking about. How can I be there and say, oh yeah, I know what it's like, if I hadn't gone through it? How can I act as an agent of inspiration and transformation if I'm talking out of something where it doesn't have any kind of experiential awareness? It makes no sense. There's no passion, there's no heat, there's no intensity, there's no love, there's nothing in that. It's just a bunch of words. Words can be lovely. But they're nothing compared to relatedness from that spirit, from that emotional content, from that soul level, from that intimate way of connecting.
I agree. I don't know. For myself, I'm always like, when you're ready, you'll make it happen. I have a daughter that, wants to do everything. And I kept going, when it's important to you, you'll do it.
Yes.
That's it. When it's important enough, you'll find a way. When people say, oh, I don't have the money, I can't do this, I can't do that. I was like, if it's important, you'll find the way.
Yes.
That's one of the reasons I moved all of my pricing, because you have to make that decision
Yes.
And now to join the community is $99 a month.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because I was talking to people. I was like, well, what do you pay to go to the gym? You know, they pay more than that. And I was like, and if you were to hire, and I've talked to even people in our community that hired personal coaches for like $5,000 for 3 months. And I was like,
in Europe, much more.
And I'm like, now I'm thinking I should double them again. I was like, are you kidding me? I was like, you get all of the classes, the community, the masterminds, you get coached, you get me, you get the others in the group that are just like you.
Right.
It's amazing to me. And I'm like, can you not add that up? I mean, there's people that pay $1,000 a month.
Yeah. Well, that's a phrase, put your money where your mouth is. That's, where, really, and for some people, maybe the most valuable thing we have is our time.
Yes.
For some people, so if the monetary aspect is that thing which really kind of drives them, then fine. But when there's a gym owner that I was talking to the other day, and they were saying how they have many, many different kinds of options, that they've got things connected to MMA stuff, they've got things connected to yoga, and then they have But he said the people who are paying the little amount are the ones who are the biggest pain in the ass, because they're the ones who want everything. And the ones who are actually paying a lot more money because they have become engaged in it in a different kind of way, those participants are really more effective. And this is really at the bottom line of it. Forget the money for a second. Engagement in a process is abundant thinking.
Yes, absolutely.
Because when a person is truly engaged in any kind of action, and that doesn't mean that they have to be screaming or carrying on, they could be very quiet, but when they're really engaged in what it is that's happening, that is operating out of an incredible amount of abundance, connectedness, and love. Yep. Because they become the agent of change they want to be because of their engagement in the universal process that allows them a connectivity that shapes everything around them through their influence and as they are shaped by it too.
Gotcha.
Fun.
All right. Thank you for another inspirational talk on Lee and me. So if you loved this episode, please share with your friends and let us know in the comments what other topics you might want to hear. You can also go to our website at thenaturallife.org and let us know under the contact me what topics you'd love to hear us talk about. Thank you again for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
Bye, Lee.
Bye, Camille.